Do you know what truly separates a mature woman who captivates a younger man from one he quietly places in the mother figure category? It's not what you think. It's not about age. It's not about looks. It's not about wealth. The difference lies in something far more subtle, something most women unintentionally misunderstand without even realizing it. If you've ever found yourself drawn to a younger man, only to notice the energy shift the moment he discovers your age, or if you've ever been in an awkward moment where you felt the need to explain yourself, defend your choices, or overcompensate, this message is going to change your entire perspective, because what I'm about to reveal directly contradicts everything you've likely been told about age gap relationships. After observing hundreds of real-life dynamics and digging deep into what truly works, I discovered that the women who succeed in these relationships do almost the exact opposite of what's typically advised. And once you reach the end of this story, you'll understand with absolute clarity why some connections flourish, while others turn into awkward and uncomfortable memories you'd rather forget. It's not about age. It's about energy. The truth is, there's a very specific behavioral pattern that quietly repels younger men, and the real issue isn't age. It's the invisible signals many women send out without realizing. Signals that speak of insecurity, a craving for approval, or an anxious need to prove worth. But before you dismiss this as another shallow trick to look younger or act a certain way, let me stop you right there. What I've learned from observing women who genuinely thrive in these dynamics is something else entirely. They don't compete with youth. They bring something completely different to the table, something a younger woman simply cannot offer. Picture this. You're a 45-year-old woman. You've been divorced. Your children are grown. And for the first time in years, your time is truly yours. You meet a 32-year-old man at a social event. The chemistry sparks immediately. But the moment the conversation turns personal, something shifts. He's still polite, still kind, but the energy, the spark, starts to fade. What happened? In most cases, it's not the age gap that changes the dynamic. It's how the woman responds once she becomes conscious of it. She might suddenly start cracking self-deprecating jokes about her age, or begin acting more protective, almost maternal, or worse, shift into a kind of impress mode, rattling off her accomplishments and financial stability. But here's the hidden mistake the most mature women make the moment they feel a genuine interest in a younger man. They unconsciously become his caretaker. They start treating him like a son, giving unsolicited advice, stepping in to protect him from challenges he could easily manage on his own, becoming overly helpful or worrying about things that mean very little to him. And here's what no one warns you about. The moment you do that, you awaken his inner son, not his inner lover. A younger man drawn to a mature woman isn't searching for a second mother. He already has one. What he's really looking for is an equal, a partner he can explore a deep, passionate, adult relationship with. When care turns into control. Now put yourself in his shoes. Would you be drawn to someone who constantly treats you like you're fragile, helpless, or in need of protection? Attraction thrives on mutual respect, admiration, and the sense that you stand on equal footing. It doesn't grow from being mentored or managed. Let me share the story of Maria. She's a 50-year-old woman I had the chance to meet. She had been married for 25 years, divorced for 2, and was just beginning to step back into the dating world. She met David, a 35-year-old man, and at first, everything felt promising. The chemistry was strong, the conversations flowed, But over time, she began falling into habits that quietly undermined their connection. In the relationship, whenever David brought up an issue at work, Maria instinctively stepped into the role of advisor. Whenever he wanted to make a spontaneous decision, she would quickly jump in and explain why he should think twice. Every time he expressed a concern, she was ready with the perfect solution pulled from her life experience. What Maria didn't realize was that David wasn't searching for a life coach. He was hoping for a partner, and it becomes even more damaging when a woman tries to take control of the entire relationship from the very beginning. This often stems from the belief that her life experience gives her the authority to direct the relationship's course, to predict his every move, to offer advice at every turn, or to gently mold him into the version she thinks he should be. But what she fails to see is that this kind of control quietly suffocates two of the most vital ingredients of attraction: spontaneity and mystery. A younger man is drawn to energy, to the thrill of unpredictability, and the excitement of discovering someone new. But if everything is already predetermined, if the map is already drawn and the journey plotted, where is the room for him to feel like the hero of the shared story you're building together? Imagine this. Every time he brings up an idea, you already know how it'll play out. Every time he suggests an adventure, you already have the outcome figured out. Every time he wants to take a risk, you've already done the emotional math and warned him of the consequences. How do you think that makes him feel? Most likely, like he's in a golden cage. It might be safe, it might be polished, but it offers no space for him to stretch, explore, or grow. Stop apologizing for your age. Here's something many mature women don't realize. A critical mistake often happens because they feel uncertain or self-conscious about their age. So when he asks how old they are, they nervously avoid the question, make a joke, change the topic, or worse, say something negative about themselves. But do you know what kind of message that sends? It tells him that age is a flaw, that it's something shameful or burdensome. Now contrast that with the woman who answers calmly and confidently, who doesn't apologize for the years she's lived, who can speak about her experience with grace and ease. That kind of presence is immediately magnetic. I remember a client once telling me about a date she had with a younger man. When he asked her age, she smiled and said, "I'm 43. And every single one of those years has taught me something deeply valuable." She didn't deflect. She didn't nervously laugh. She didn't shift the conversation. She simply owned her truth, and she did it with elegance. And he wasn't captivated by her age. He was drawn to the confidence with which she carried it. You don't need to compete with youth. Now let me show you another common misstep I see again and again: the obsession with looking younger. Don't get me wrong. It's wonderful to take care of yourself, to stay in shape, to nourish your appearance. The problem begins when it's driven by panic, when it turns into a frantic race to keep up with women 20 years younger. Do you know what happens when a younger man senses that you're trying to be someone you're not? He disconnects immediately, because what first drew him to you wasn't your ability to mimic youth. It was the qualities that come only with age: confidence, presence, depth. A younger man who seeks a relationship with a mature woman isn't chasing a younger replica. If he wanted that, he'd simply date someone his own age. What he craves is something altogether different, something only you, with your years and wisdom, can offer. Let me tell you about Carmen. She was 48 and had spent thousands of euros trying to reverse the clock. Botox, fillers, luxury facials. She even started wearing clothes that 20-year-old women might choose. When she met Andres, a 34-year-old man, she was convinced her youthful makeover would win him over. But something unexpected happened. Andres was courteous but distant. Later, Carmen reflected on what went wrong, and she realized she had masked everything that made her special. Her essence, her energy, her authenticity, all buried beneath layers of effort to appear younger. Here's something many women still overlook. Trying to impress a younger man with professional accomplishments or financial stability can actually work against you. Yes, it's incredible that you're independent, that you've built something meaningful and lasting. But when that becomes your entire identity, when every conversation revolves around your career, your investments, your travels, you're missing the point. Because real attraction isn't built on LinkedIn profiles. It's born from emotional connection, from that spark that says, life is better, deeper, more alive when I'm with you. Sure, your achievements might earn his respect, but they won't necessarily ignite his desire. Put yourself in his shoes for a moment. If every time you talk, it feels like a professional pitch, if the energy feels more like a job interview than a flirtatious exchange, how would he feel? Probably like he's being evaluated, not romanced. And if you constantly lean on your financial stability, what message does that really send? That your worth lies in what you've accumulated, not in who you are. Mystery, rhythm, and the power of being whole. Now let's talk about one of the most subtle yet powerfully destructive mistakes of all excessive availability. Always replying instantly, canceling your own plans to accommodate his, being endlessly free, anytime he calls. To you, this might feel like love, like attentiveness, like presence, but to him, it feels like lack. And lack, regardless of age, is never attractive. The woman who follows her own rhythm, who keeps her own interests alive, who is available but not dependent, who chooses to show up, not because she needs to, but because she genuinely wants to. That's the woman who inspires both admiration and longing. Now picture this. He texts, and you respond immediately. He suggests something, and you agree without hesitation. He mentions anything, and you turn it into a compliment. How do you think he feels? Chances are overwhelmed. And if we're honest, a little bored. Because where's the excitement? Where's the challenge? Where's the thrill of earning the attention of someone who is truly remarkable? Many mature women fall into a quiet but powerful trap, the trap of excessive seriousness. They believe that in order to be respected, they must always be logical, composed, and entirely in control. But in striving for that image, they often end up silencing one of their greatest assets, their sensuality and playful spirit. Do you know what a younger man is actually seeking in a mature woman? He's not looking for another heavy dose of responsibility or solemnity. He already has that in his job, in his family, and in the expectations placed on him every day. What he's truly craving is someone who can laugh with him, someone who's spontaneous, full of vibrant energy, someone who knows how to enjoy life, but who brings the depth and confidence that only age and experience can provide. That rare mix of vitality and maturity is what makes a woman utterly irresistible. It's not about trying to be youthful. It's about being radiant with wisdom. Let me introduce you to Patricia. She was 51, and after her divorce, she developed an intensely serious personality. She believed that in order to be respected, both as a professional and a single mother, she had to maintain a polished image of total control. When she met Roberto, a 36-year-old man, she carried that same seriousness into every interaction. Their early dates were polite but cold. Patricia focused on significant topics, offered well-reasoned opinions, and presented herself as responsible and grounded. But Roberto didn't feel a spark. He felt like he was sitting across from a business associate, not a romantic partner. There was no laughter, no surprise, no emotional electricity to light up the space between them. Now let's talk about something I believe is absolutely crucial: the dangerous game of forced indifference. Some women are taught that they must act detached, pretend they don't care, keep their emotions at a distance so they don't seem needy or vulnerable. But here's the truth when you fake detachment. It always shows. And what the man perceives isn't mystery or independence. It's coldness, or even worse, arrogance. True maturity is about being able to express real interest without clinging. It's the ability to be open without being overwhelming, to show emotion without trying to manipulate the outcome. When a mature woman fakes indifference, she shuts down one of her most powerful gifts, her ability to connect deeply, emotionally, and authentically. Young men, often used to more surface-level interactions with women their own age, are magnetically drawn to that emotional depth, but only when it's real. Now let's get to the heart of all these missteps. Because once you understand the root, everything else starts to make perfect sense. Most mature women step into these relationships already believing their age is a disadvantage. And from that belief, they act in ways that betray their own truth. They become overly eager to prove their worth. They try to control things out of fear of being left behind. Or they shrink into submission, thinking they should feel lucky just to be noticed. But here's the truth that changes everything. Your age is not a weakness. It's a difference. And that difference is magnetic if you embrace it, not resist it. A younger man who's genuinely interested in a mature woman isn't searching for someone to compensate for her years. He's looking for exactly what you already are: a woman with lived experience, with presence, with depth, and with a perspective on life that he simply hasn't gained yet. Let's look at it differently. What can you offer him that no woman his age possibly can? First, a wide-angle view of life, one that only comes from years of real-world experience. Second, an emotional steadiness that evolves over time. And third, a freedom to be fully yourself. Something many younger women, still caught in the whirlwind of self-discovery, often haven't yet found. But most importantly, a mature woman who has walked through hardship, faced challenges, and learned from them, carries a kind of emotional depth that is incredibly alluring. It's not about counting years. It's about having lived those years with intention, with reflection, with resilience. And here's the secret behind the women who thrive in these relationships. They don't try to seduce. They simply show up as they are. They don't fight their nature. They celebrate it. They don't apologize for what they've lived through. They turn it into power. When a woman stops trying to impress and begins to embrace her authenticity, when she stops competing with youth and instead offers something entirely different, when she moves from self-doubt to self-acceptance, that's when she becomes magnetic beyond words. Take Alela Nena, for example. She was 46, had gone through a hard divorce, and raised 2 children on her own. When she met Marcos, a 33-year-old man, she didn't try to edit her story. She didn't put on a polished performance. She simply spoke her truth. She shared the lonely nights, the strength it took to get through them, the lessons in resilience, and how she rebuilt her life from the ground up. She wasn't fishing for sympathy. She was just being real. And Marcos, he wasn't captivated by drama. He was drawn to the wisdom and quiet strength she had gained through it all. Because the kind of woman a younger man finds truly irresistible isn't some better version of his peers. She's something else entirely. She's someone with genuine presence, someone who doesn't require constant validation to feel valuable, someone who owns her space, her energy, her identity without apology. Think about it like this. The moment you feel the need to prove your desirability, that's the moment your natural allure begins to slip away. Real attraction happens when someone sees your value without you ever needing to highlight it. And now, here's something beautiful I want you to carry with you. A woman who respects herself, who nurtures herself not out of fear, but out of love, who stands in her truth without hiding. That woman radiates something unshakable. No matter her age, she shines with a quality that can't be faked. Authenticity. That's the rarest and most powerful thing in the modern world of relationships. Because while everyone else is busy performing for attention, the one who simply shows up as she is, she becomes unforgettable. Everyone seems to be trying to become the version of themselves they think others want to see. But when you encounter someone who simply is, who isn't pretending, isn't performing, isn't trying to be more or less than they are, there's a different kind of magic that happens. Imagine you're at a gathering and you meet someone who's not trying to impress anyone. They're not seeking approval. They're not acting. They're just being exactly who they are. How do you feel in their presence? Chances are, you feel at ease, maybe even intrigued, genuinely curious. Because authenticity is disarming. It draws you in without even trying. Now here's the greatest irony of all. The women who are most successful with younger men are the ones who try the least. They're not chasing attention. They're not attempting to fix or prove anything. They're too immersed in living their own lives to be strategizing about how to attract someone. And that fullness, that wholeness, becomes deeply magnetic. They aren't offering from a place of lack or longing. They're offering from abundance. And that distinction isn't subtle, it's palpable. When a mature woman is truly grounded in her own energy, when she's made peace with the past, finds joy in her present, and holds optimism for what lies ahead, that kind of energy is infectious. Younger men, often uncertain, searching, or still shaping their own paths, find themselves drawn to that quiet certainty, to that natural confidence, to that inspired presence. But let me be clear. This doesn't mean you should position yourself as a guide or become his mentor. That's not the point. Your presence becomes inspiring, not because you're trying to lead or instruct, but simply because you're living an inspired life. When you start to see your age not as a flaw, but as a feature, when you stop viewing your past as baggage and start recognizing it as a badge, when you no longer feel the need to compete, but instead choose to offer something wholly unique, that's the moment everything starts to shift. Because here's the truth. You possess something a 20-year-old woman simply cannot offer: perspective. You have the clarity that comes from years of life experience. You know what you want and what you no longer need. You carry the emotional steadiness that's only earned by facing and surviving storms. You've lived through enough to stop needing to prove anything to anyone. Now think of it this way. Yes, a young woman may be beautiful, sharp, fun, full of life. But can she offer the profound emotional depth of someone who has truly lived? Can she offer the inner peace of someone who has already walked through fire and come out stronger? Can she offer the sense of freedom that comes from no longer chasing identity, but living it? And all of that, when you embrace it fully and unapologetically, is undeniably seductive. A young man who's genuinely drawn to you isn't seeking a replacement mother. He's not chasing a mentor or a teenage version in disguise. He's looking for something deeper. He's looking for a woman who stands in her truth, someone who radiates presence, someone who doesn't need outside approval to feel worthy. He's hoping to learn things about life not from lectures, but through shared experience. He's curious about emotional layers he hasn't touched yet, not because you're older, but because you've lived with greater intensity. Let me tell you about Adriana. She was 52. She had traveled the world, built a successful career, raised her children, and even overcome a serious illness. When she met Jungian, a 35-year-old man, she didn't list these accomplishments to impress him. She didn't need to. She simply was. A woman who had fully inhabited her life. And Jungian. He wasn't enchanted by the bullet points. He was captivated by her presence. There was a calmness in her, a confidence that didn't come from pride, but from complete self-acceptance. When she spoke, he felt as though he was with someone who truly knew herself. And that's the real key. It's never been about age. It's about energy. It's never been about how many years you've lived. It's about how deeply you've lived them. It's not just experience, it's integrated wisdom. When a woman stops resisting who she is and starts honoring it, when she accepts every part of herself without question, that's when she becomes unforgettable. She becomes the woman who commands admiration without demanding it, the one everyone wants to be around. Because in the end, it's not perfection that draws people in. It's authenticity. It's not youth that makes someone magnetic. It's vitality. It's not inexperience that creates allure. It's the rare combination of freshness and the full, lived richness of a well-traveled soul. And that, my dear, is something only you can offer. You don't need to apologize for it. You don't need to shrink or make up for it. You don't need to hide any part of it. You need to celebrate it, live it, and let it become the natural source of your magnetism. Because when a mature woman finally sees her age not as an obstacle, but as a gift, when she understands that the very things she once believed made her less than her in truth, the things that make her exceptional, that's when everything begins to transform, not just in her relationships, but in her entire life. If it stirred something honest in you, follow that thread. Subscribe for more spaces that speak to who you truly are.